Okay, third time's the charm.
Third time's the charm.
Welcome, family. Here we go.
We're doing it.
This is your host, Jeff, with the Jeff Talks podcast. Super stoked today because I have my friend on, Chad Beauchamp. Did I say your last name right?
Beauchamp.
What?
Beauchamp.
Beauchamp. Dude,
French.
I'm sorry, I've been saying
That's
it
okay.
wrong.
Everybody
for a long
does,
time.
don't worry. Normally
Oh,
in about
shit.
the third year of friendships, they figure it out.
In the third year?
Yeah.
I'm not wearing my headphones. Can't do it. Dude, what's up? Hi.
Not too much. but
Oh
we
my
just figured
gosh.
it out,
We
first
just
class.
took at least 30 minutes. 30 minutes to finally figure that shit out.
But we figured it out.
But we did figure it out. The reason that let's start with how we met.
Sure.
Let's start there. And how our friendship blossomed.
Perfect.
So, you were dating a girl who then I met in a yoga class because my dad met her at a yoga retreat or something like that, yoga
Well,
seminar.
technically, your dad met me
First.
and then
Okay.
through me, he met her.
Okay.
Yeah.
Was that here?
That was here. Yes. And here is at Repair Sports Institute.
Yes. Thank you
Yes.
for clarifying. I was just going to ask.
Yes, no worries.
So then my dad invited me to go to a yoga class that she was doing. Met her. That was also here.
Also here, yep.
And then, gosh, at the time then I moved back to Pennsylvania where I was changing my life around. And then I came back, I reached out to her, we ended up... When did we all hang out again?
Your birthday at the beach.
That's
when
right.
That's when
That's right. So then she introduced me to one of her friends who I ended up fancying, and then invited everybody to the beach for my birthday. Okay.
Yes.
That's how it all happened.
Yes, sir.
So then, fast forwarding, y'all broke up,
Yes.
and then shortly after we broke up
Yes, it was in the water.
in the water.
We all drank it. So yeah, it all came unglued.
So then we started hanging out, and I think that's honestly, Chad, I think that's when I really got to see you, and I think I definitely was vulnerable with you, and I felt like we bonded as males because of this place of vulnerability and confusion and frustration. So anyways, I definitely wanted to touch on that just
Yeah.
for the viewers and be like, hey, this is how we met. It's kind of weird circumstances,
Yeah.
but
Absolutely.
now we're collaborating together, and I work with mental health and substance abuse. You have been on your own spiritual journey for how long now? When did that start?
About 6 years ago. But
Okay.
for a long time. Even before that, I don't think I was necessarily conscious to the journey at the time. Now looking back, it was definitely further. But really, 6 years ago was more of an acknowledgement of that journey and saying, hey, this is kind of where I'm at and the things that I want to work on and really explore and challenge myself. And that was six plus years ago, and how it started for me was really reaching out and finding a professional that on the lines of a psychologist, and she is a psychologist, the person I reached out to, but it was really more in the focus of the energy component of it. So when I seeked somebody out, it was more along the lines of energy work, emotional trauma kind of healing stuff. And even at the time, it wasn't that anything was really challenging for me or tough per se, or the struggles in my life. It was more I was starting my business. Several things kind of just going on in life, and I acknowledge that, hey, this is going to be probably rather challenging, and starting the really focusing on the spiritual journey at that time was what better way about starting this and practicing it than learning from somebody that is a professional and does it for a living. And so that's when I did start, once a week working with somebody.
Yeah.
And doing all kinds of different stuff. And I'm not even sure, I mean, they all have different names and stuff, but it really was, by my description, a deep dive, in some cases a cleanse, some cases exploration, and I have been doing it off and on for 6 years with a professional, and of course, on my own, pretty much daily in some way, shape, or form.
So tell us what it is that you do now. Like, what is
Sure.
repair?
Sure. Yeah.
And then please add on the end how we tie that into kind of like the spiritual aspect, mindfulness, awareness, and all that stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. So Repair Sports Institute is the business that I started 6 years ago at the same time I started this journey. And I'm a doctor of physical therapy. That has been the career path that I went to school for. I've always been in sports and on a high level. I played a little bit of college sports, but I always wanted to be with professional athletes. And to me, it went down the path of physical therapy. I had a lot of injuries myself, which we'll talk a little bit more about. But that was the career decision that I made. Now, when I wanted to start my own business, there was a lot of reasons of why. And some of that was, seeing where the profession really was limited and lacked a lot of the spiritual and the energy side of healing and wellness.
Absolutely.
And so the current business is primarily rehabilitation, including physical therapy, chiropractic, acupuncture, sports massage, all of that stuff. And then along with that, we mix in a wellness component, which is nutrition. It has mindfulness to it. There's an energy, trauma, emotional healing aspect to it. Along with the acupuncture is also starting to touch on some of the energy side of things. So, my mindset when starting the business was really, not just geared around the Western medicine of physical therapy, chiro, and all of that. It was really getting that down, but incorporating more of what you could classify as Eastern medicine, more of the energetic side of things. And so that is what we are doing. We are still in the growth process. I feel, we have a lot of things down, and more recently I've been starting to focus on the energy side of stuff. So as my practice has grown personally, it really has grown within the business. It is going to continue to grow. And there's a lot of different ways that we work that in. One way is, working one-on-one with different clients and discussing some of these energy things with them. Specifically can be related to injury, or it could just be related to life. And a lot of times, people, you'll hear in media or marketing and whatnot that, mind, body, and spirit. It's a very marketable thing. A lot of people state it. And of course, that is, kind of the backbone of what we do here too. And a lot of times Western medicine is very good at focusing in on the body part of that, right?
Yeah,
which is
100%.
obviously very, very important. The way I describe it to people is the body is the vehicle that we are in and what we use in order to operate in this world, this realm, if you want to call it, right? And so the other side is, well, what are you doing for the mind and the spirit, right? Like if you're really good at addressing the body aspect of that 3-tier system, what about the other 2? And that's what we really been slowly but surely working into it. And of course, mind and spirit to me really go hand in hand. A lot of the energy work helping with the spiritual side of things really is linked to the mind side. And if you aren't working on both and have a regular practice for both, it can really also hinder the healing and wellness of the body side of things too. So really, in a nutshell, that is what we're focusing on, and continuing to add in things to make that run smoother. And the challenging part is there's a business side of it too, right? Like there's definitely, first and foremost, is the mission that I have, but in order to execute the mission, like you have to be able to finance the mission, you have to be able to, be able to support yourself and others on top of that as far as employees. And so that is definitely a big challenge, is always trying to figure out what about the business and the financial side of these, 3-tier system that we mentioned earlier. So it's been a lot of learning, a lot of troubleshooting, and I'm happy with the progress. But there's always growth to be had, and there's always a practice, just like our own personal journeys.
I think that's what personally I really, really love about what you do. So it's like on one side, I see it very Western approach, right? Very in the body. You're literally looking at, for me, in my experience, like literally being one of your clients, looking at my IT bands and like all the connective like joints and muscles and all that, but not just focusing on my IT bands, looking at the whole hip, the knee, the ankle, everything, right? Even my posture. But then I think what is so cool and exciting is you literally don't just want to stop there. You don't just want to focus on the body. You want it to be a whole being, a trifecta, and literally using so my approach with my clients and in the work that I do is I'm very in my body. I've always been that way. So how can I use my body to heal my mind, and doing certain, whether it's breath work, whether it's, again, for me, cold showers, going for a long walk and working out, being active and getting things moving. And then almost like for me, it's like a form of connection through sweat, through discomfort, and then literally having a measurable growth, and then taking those same principles and just looking at them in a spiritual aspect and an emotional aspect, I've shared with you a few times, like going through the breakup, like, dude, it was hard, but so is going and working out. So is going and training for, a marathon or whatever it may be. So is literally going through a physical injury. But you can't avoid it, right? So like in the past, I would drink, I would drug, and I would just numb it out or run from it. But what, to me, on like a deeper level, I love how you sit with people in, let's say, a very vulnerable position. They're hurt. Most people come in here with some type of injury or after surgery, and then now they're literally looking to repair, right? And make it better than maybe it once was, right? So you're sitting with people and you're just being with them. You're accepting the fact that they're hurt, but you love the fact and you feed the side that they want to be better. And again, I know I'm probably getting a lot more like general and like philosophical about it, but like this place is rad in that aspect. I love being able to, from the little that I've seen, but also experienced, you just sat with me while you moved my leg around with your elbow in my glute while I'm in like agony, bro. Like that fucking hurt. Yeah. But you literally talked me through it and you encouraged me through it. And then I go work out, and then it's like, then this repair process. So it's like pushing on the thing that hurts the most, but understanding that that's gonna actually get more blood flow, that's gonna allow more nutrients and reduce inflammation and all that stuff. So it's super, super tied into our emotional and our spiritual growth. It's literally the same thing, right? Absolutely. Just like a muscle, you break it down so then it grows back stronger, so then you can use it more. Yeah. And it becomes more resilient. It's the same thing with our soul. So, sorry, I just went on a little rant, but I absolutely love what you do. Do you think, so mental health, I watched this, I read this article. It basically says mental health is the worst that it's been in like years. It is, meaning the numbers of like mental health and substance abuse has quadrupled, if like way more, ever since COVID. Yeah. So I guess my question to you is, how do you see what you do, how does that help in the approach to mental health and to substance abuse?
Mm-hmm.
So I guess that would be
Most definitely. You think with there's so many things going on, and if it's to put your finger on just one thing, who knows? Like obviously, COVID is a part of it, and people losing their jobs because of that, and the financial uncertainties, and you also have to think about all the people that are normally so wrapped up in those jobs or going to a job, or whether it's playing sports as a kid, or a professional athlete or college athlete, and you take all of that away, you have no idea how many identities are attached to that. And identity is a very confusing thing for a lot of people. And, I experienced it from when I went through, high school into college, and then, been an athlete my whole life, right? Like so often, somebody describes somebody and like, oh yeah, the athlete, right? Like that's an identity.
Yeah.
And so many people don't realize as far as what that means to the individual. Like the individual is literally attached to that identity.
Right.
And so
like a label almost.
It's a label, correct. And there's so many different things as far as what that means, right? And as you separate yourself from that, such as my transition out of being an actual athlete from college, it can be very challenging. You're almost in a lot of ways like are unsure of who you are and what that means, because you're no longer an athlete. If you're a good athlete, you to some extent get a lot of praise, or people value you for certain things, because of that. Well, so many identities have been, moved around or taken away, or whatever you want to call it, from COVID, and loss of jobs and loss of finances and all kinds of things. So yes, when you start messing with somebody's identities, and most often, identity is when you're attached to one, especially when it's superficial, such as an athlete, something like that, that you're not doing your self-work, or you're not quite on the journey spiritually that you should probably be on. And that's not a judgment statement, it just probably means that there's a lot of work to be done, which we all need to do it. And so in that case, you end up having a lot of challenges, things are a lot harder for you as an individual. But then also think about the couples, the husband, wives, boyfriend, girlfriends, mom and dads, and the crazy amount of time that they're now spending with each other, because they're all at home too, right? So that's a whole nother level to it,
right?
And that can cause a lot of mental health issues. So that's one level to it. There's just a lot going on also with the political changes, and you have the race stuff that's out there, and there is so much. It's such a heated environment right now, and I think that's for a reason. I think if it wasn't a pandemic, it would have been something else. If it wasn't political, or if it wasn't racial, it would have been something else. I think it really is just the time of where we're at. And for me, for the last couple years, and I've been having conversations about this for probably 2 or 3 years with different professionals that I've seen, and various other people.
Specifically about like mental health,
but specifically about the changes that are right on the precipice of happening.
Yeah.
And over the years, I'm kind of looking at these different professions like, okay, yeah, I feel it, I do. Still being a little bit of green as far as what all that means, but kept from multiple different professionals. Like, the times are coming, like things are changing, like stuff's going to be happening. And it's like, okay. And I think it would happen no matter what. And really, to me, it's the changing of what norm is, and meaning that people are either going to realize that they're on a spiritual journey, need to do more on their spiritual journey. They're awoke, whatever you want to call it, awaken, whatever.
Yeah.
Or you go the other direction and you're not. You just go through the motions, or you're not all about that. And there's no judgment again on either side, but I think that's just the way it's going to go. And I think a lot of people probably could agree with, different experiences that they're having right now, that more and more people, are attracting similar types of people to each other, on a higher level, more rapid level, whatever you want to call it. Because it's happening to me, I know that, and times 10 over the last 6 months, let's say, and directly corresponded with COVID, maybe, or it's just, it was going to happen no matter what, right? And so that's kind of where I've been mentally, and I think that has a lot to do with what's going on. And anytime there is big change, and you actually described it very well, if we're talking about the physical side of things, that change is painful, change is tough, and in order to awaken things up and get nutrients to it, the same thing happens on the spiritual and the mental side. A lot of times before there is true change and going down a good direction, it's painful, it's challenging, it sucks sometimes, but it really
a lot of the time,
but
sure.
It really tests you to see which way you're going. Are you gonna go down the spiritual path, or are you gonna go down, I'm just gonna do this,
right?
Whatever this is. And I think that's where we are, and I think that's why you see a lot of those challenges right now, and unfortunately it's still the norm to go more towards drinking or drugs or whatever else. Now, where we are, working out and eating healthier is a lot more common, popular thing, which is good, awesome, thank you. But that is still only the physical side of things, and thankfully it also addresses a lot of the mental and spiritual side of things. But you got to think about that is still only directly practicing the physical. Sure, you get some of the spiritual and mental things wrapped into that, but what if you were able to address all three? Like, imagine how that would be, right? Any successful business person or very experienced or professional athlete at a high level, like, they in some way, shape, or form are addressing all three. And whether their spiritual side is through religion or it's through meditation, that doesn't really matter, as long as you have a practice that's consistent. To me, I think it's getting you down a good path, and then mixing in the mental side of things, the challenges and whatnot, and it really just comes down to creating a practice and helping with what we're seeing right now. And I wish there was more mainstream stuff spoken about like this.
100%.
Right? That's part of the reason why I'm all about doing a podcast like this, especially from the masculine side. Males, I think I'm seeing, at least people, going back to the attracting part, a lot of males that have come into my life over the last 6 months are all about it, right? And a lot of the males that are exiting stage left in my life are not about it. Again, to me, is that coincidence? Absolutely not. That's just where we are at. And I feel like because, that is happening, I want to do as much as I can, to, show that it is normal. There's nothing wrong with it. And I think the more we can do that, the stronger it all can be, because quite frankly, it needs to be on both sides. It needs to be females and males doing what they need to do, and not just talking, but having a plan and practice and put it in place, and attracting others to help them as well.
I totally agree with that. I think having a good group of males around you that you can talk about hard stuff is so important. In my opinion, if not the most important thing, that you have people surrounding you where you can feel free to just be you. You don't need to always be like happy-go-lucky and like super high all the time, and then also you don't need to like feed the victim card.
Right.
That you're around people that build you up, but also call you out on your bullshit, that are real with you.
Right.
So I totally agree. Have you seen, there was a special on HBO with Michael Phelps, and it's called The Weight of Gold?
I did not see it. I know what you're talking about.
He talks about like his mental health, and he really like just calls out the whole industry.
Right.
Of like, dude, like they just grind for years and years and years.
Yeah.
But then like we don't even know who we are outside of like when he says outside of the pool.
Yeah, identity. Right.
Yeah.
And we have the identity that he's a swimmer.
Right.
Heaven forbid we actually stop to think about, well, actually he's a person.
He's a human being.
And just goes through the same stuff, if not, in many cases, more challenging things than, we do in some cases. So, yes, and again, you see a lot more professional athletes, celebrities, business owners, all kinds of coming out and talking about these mental issues.
Like in the past couple of years, would you say?
Yeah.
Or like since COVID?
No, the last couple of years,
Okay.
COVID, I'm not necessarily sure. I mean, because everything's been so drowned out by COVID and the political stuff. So, people.
I use it because it's a good time frame.
Yeah, I mean.
COVID, okay, March.
Yeah, before. I mean, I really do believe that we, in history's time, we will talk about before COVID and after COVID.
Yeah.
And there will be a big difference.
Yeah.
There really will be.
For sure.
This year will be very interesting. I don't necessarily know how it will all play out, but I do know the people that are on their path and have a practice. It's going to be a good year. That doesn't mean it's not going to be challenging, but it's going to be a very good year. I feel it, and a lot of things are going to be really happening, where it was like last year to me, really was, okay, let's really test everybody and see which way they're going to go.
Yeah.
And I think, again, why you have a lot of people going drugs, alcohol this way, and divorce and suicide, sadly, in a lot of ways. And then you have other people that are starting businesses and finding themselves and new adventures and new relationships, or getting out of relationships that weren't serving themselves, and all of those things. And that's just the way it's going to be, right? And there's probably going to be more challenges this year. And I don't know how big.
No doubt.
How big if it be as big as COVID, but who knows? Yeah.
What has been the hardest thing for you getting or starting this spiritual journey in these last 6 years? It could be personally, relationship-wise, or even business.
Yeah.
Like, what has been something that like has sucked, and then, because I like finishing with a positive, that you've overcome, and that you're just like, oh my God.
Yeah. A lot, and it's all wrapped into one too, whether it's business, personal relationships, significant other relationships, friendships, God, it really is all wrapped into one. But as far as just talking on the spiritual path, one thing is, when you're open and welcoming to that path, you got to be vulnerable with yourself, right? Number one. And most people, it's crazy to think about, but you spend 100% of the time with yourself. Well, in some ways, in some ways not.
Yeah.
But most people can't be vulnerable with themselves. They truthfully can't be honest with where they're at, how they're doing, what makes them happy, what doesn't make them happy.
Right.
And I think a lot of the way, initially it was probably that vulnerability, even though I was at a point when I started like, oh no, I'm ready, like, let's do this, And I always, before the 6 years, before the focus on it, I thought everything was fine and dandy, and wow, I'm so blessed.
Like internally?
Internally, externally, like everything that I set my mind to, like I accomplished, and rather easy. Sure, it wasn't always easy, but fairly easy in comparison to others.
Sure.
But the more I got into it, and I knew it was the right path, and I knew I was doing the right stuff as far as the exploration and then the practice, it does bring up a lot of stuff, and you really have to truly consistently be vulnerable with yourself, and that is probably the hardest thing that I had to experience. And then consistency.
Just for the listeners, were you already out in California?
Oh,
or was this back home?
No, I was already out here.
Oh, okay.
I moved here 12 years ago.
Oh, okay.
13 years ago, yeah.
Okay.
So it was, halfway through my time here, which is a big point too, because Midwest is very different.
Yeah.
It's definitely more acceptable here as far as having that mindset.
Yeah.
So it was definitely that, and continuing to go and continuing to practice, but in some cases it almost seemed like I was more emotional, more stressed out, less at peace, lost as far as what makes me happy.
Yeah.
And I remember going down these paths in many ways and being like, what? Like, I thought I was doing the good thing. I thought I was, on this path. And why all of a sudden do I have all these questions now? Why am I so confused? And in a lot of ways, when I thought I was found before, it was like, no, I was actually truly finding who I am.
Right.
Which has been suppressed in a lot of ways. And like many males, I have a very strong feminine side, and a lot of who I am, and it shows in different ways in this realm. However, I suppressed it in a lot of other ways, just from upbringing, society, environment, friends.
In my hips.
Everywhere,
Yeah.
And really, it's like, if you're not allowing and accepting of both the masculine and the feminine side, like, something's gonna happen at some point, who knows what, or you just kind of go through the motions, and you're not as happy and energetic.
Balanced. You're very unbalanced.
Very unbalanced.
Yeah.
Very unbalanced, which then sets up how you act about certain things, how you respond to certain things. And so through that process, that had really started to come up. And then once I was okay with the vulnerability side of me consistently, even though it wasn't always pleasant, it was then being consistent with the self-practice. And even the practice of seeking assistance wasn't always consistent, because with that, when you become more vulnerable and you face a lot of different things, there's a realization of like, oh crap, I need to do something about that. And it's not always easy.
Yeah.
Right?
For sure.
And then there's the continuously holding yourself accountable to that consistent practice. So those are both are consistency things, for me. But the vulnerability part is such a huge one. And it's very interesting that I'm definitely at a point now where not only am I completely accepting of the vulnerability with myself, it's almost everybody that I've brought into my life and pushed out of my life is around that vulnerability part. The people that are coming in, very vulnerable and accepting of themselves on all aspects, good and the bad. And the people that I kind of have left were the people that just weren't going to do that, at least at the timing of our relationship. It doesn't mean that they won't do it in the future. It doesn't mean that I think poorly of them or they're not good people. It just, where I'm at was a different place than where they were at, and that's okay. And that, has always been hard for me as far as ending relationships. It was something that I never enjoyed. I never... I really was caught up a lot on what people thought of me, whether I was good or bad. Again, right? A lot of people are like that. But I think that has to do with your relationship with yourself.
100%.
Right?
I would agree.
Like, it's nice to have people have good thoughts and feelings of you, but really it just comes down to you. You know, and if you're okay with how you feel about yourself, well, then it really doesn't matter about the other people. And that's from an unselfish standpoint.
I love that. So what is something that you do every single day to have a healthy relationship with yourself? And also I want to add that what was it, a book that's I think the title was like The Body Tells the Story? That basically, like, if you're feeling like a certain, like, if something happens if you have bad digestion, then it actually means something.
Sure.
That it means like you're super anxious, you're depressed, or like there's like an emotional tie to certain discomforts, if you will, in like literally certain areas of your body.
Without a doubt,
Yeah.
I mean, that's a part of energy and spiritual stuff, like in the people I've been to and more I'm reading and learning is, various parts, aches and pains in the body, are attached to different emotions and spiritual things or things that are going on in your life. Most definitely.
So like the left side is feminine,
Yeah.
I've heard,
Yeah.
and the right side is masculine.
Yeah.
My left side of my body, so tight.
Yeah.
So incredibly tight. Way more tight than my right. And it's because I'm like overcompensating with this like masculine energy and strength and totally unbalanced.
Yeah.
Totally unbalanced.
And that is life, right? You know, like the sun comes up, the moon comes up.
Mm-hmm.
And that is life, always a balance, constantly going.
Light,
You know,
dark,
without
yin and yang.
exactly without light there isn't dark. You know, that concept, that is literally with everything. You know, if there's matter, well, the absence of matter is not matter. There has to be a balance, otherwise
Does it matter?
Exactly. I mean, when you're going into metaphysics, that's a whole crazy realm in itself, which super fascinates me. And I think a lot of those things are going to become more mainstream and knowledge out there for everybody, which excites me because I'm very scientific, you know. So that's another thing is on my journey. It's like I have a very scientific mind. It's just the way I'm set up. You know, like in order for me to really wrap my head around something, like I need empirical evidence. I need to know other people did the due diligence of, you know, proving it wrong or proving it right, and then I need to experience it myself in various forms. And with the spiritual side and energetic side, it's like you really put yourself out there. But thankfully, also ingrained in me is like I believe something is true until it's proven not to be, basically, right? Which, you know, can be a little dangerous in some ways, but it really does require you to do that in a lot of ways, and definitely on this journey it requires you to do that. Otherwise you can second guess a lot of things, and it won't allow you to put yourself out there.
Right. So what is something that you do? I know we kind of got off topic, but what is something that you do for your to have a healthy relationship with yourself?
You know what? And there's a lot of different things, and you know, a lot of people have.
I feel like there has to be a lot of different things.
And I'm
because
different.
Life is complicated.
I'm different. It doesn't make me an exception. It doesn't make me the way I do things any better than anybody else.
Mm-hmm.
I've tried to put consistent practices in place, and I'm not. It's really challenging for me, and it's not that I've given up on, you know, okay, every morning I'm going to do this, you know, I'm going to do breath work, or every morning or every night I'm going to do this, or right. It's not saying I'm giving up on that. It's not saying that I shouldn't keep practicing it. I will continue to practice different things, but I would have to say the biggest thing that I do every day is a constant yes or no to myself and what I'm doing. Yes or no. Is this good for you? Yes or no, does this benefit you? Yes or no, are you feeding, you know, the white wolf or the black wolf? You know, the whole inner side of things. And that is something that more recently, in 4 or 5 months, I've gotten a lot better at. And that doesn't mean that I never do anything I don't want to do, because that's, you know, in a lot of ways not productive or good for you either.
Right.
It just means by the end of the day, I would like to have a positive as far as, I fed the good side more so than the negative. Or, you know, if you're going to go real hard and put in a bunch of work, you know, well, then make sure you do something also to balance that out and make yourself happy. So for me, it was really a lot of soul searching as far as what makes me happy. It was something that, you know, Justin asked me a lot towards the end of our relationship was, what makes you happy? And I couldn't answer it. It blew my mind. I really didn't know what made me happy.
That's powerful.
Yeah, it's crazy. And it was something that I thought about a lot, and honestly, almost every single day. And I'm like, how can I not answer that question? Yeah. And there's so many things tied to that, but it's something that I made sure to explore. And now, you know, I have all kinds of new hobbies or things I'm trying out and exploring, and All kinds of things make me happy. Definitely for me is I have to create in one way, shape, or form. I have to constantly create. The more I feed my creative side, which is the feminine side,
yeah.
is when I feel more imbalanced. And I need to move. I need to be active. I need to use my hands. I need to move. Walk, run, be physically active. That's something I know for sure. It makes me happy, and I need. And then at the same time, I do need some rest. I do need some, hey, sit with myself, go outside and wow, look at that tree, or wow, it feels so nice. That is more drawing yourself into the moment. That I do that more than ever at this point. And one thing that has really helped me with that is creating really awesome environments around me. So where I live, even this office, I make very conscious efforts to making it super comfortable. Things that I like, things that make me happy, textures, colors, all of that stuff. I make a point of surrounding myself with that, and it always draws me into the moment. It draws me into a place of gratitude because I'm able to do that financially. I'm able to do that in a freedom of choice sense. And so those are a lot of things that I do daily in order to continue on my path and to do my own self work. And then of course, several times a week I still go to different professionals and mix it up, whether it's Reiki, whether it's doing something like this, or disc golf. One thing for guys is we like to move, we like to do things, right? Like that's
talk.
The masculine energy, exactly.
Ladies, you gotta get us moving,
right?
And then talk
there
to
you
us.
Have it. That's
we can't just sit down and talk.
Right.
Some of us can.
Right.
Some of us totally can. I can. Right. I believe you can, Chad. But oh man, if it's not a constant practice, like if you're not used to sitting down and doing literally what we're doing, you got to get us moving. Exactly. So, ladies, go have me do the dishes or mow the lawn or I don't know, something.
Big tip. Yeah.
While he's working on his car, maybe I don't know. Something.
We'll do something that he likes to do, whether that's go golf or whatever it is. Get him doing that and then talk.
Right.
Right.
So you mentioned environment.
Yeah.
I love that. That really stood out to me. You mentioned how intentional you are with trying to make this place a safe environment for your clients, right? I think that is also so important when it comes to allowing that person to be vulnerable, to be authentic, and for it to just flow naturally. And to add to that, to let the healing process, the repair process, to flow naturally. So if my mind is at dis-ease, then usually I'll have something going on in my body. But that's just like telling me or showing me that, like, hey, you shouldn't have ate, 2 pints of ice cream, or hey, you shouldn't have done this, or I'm feeling lethargic, or like all these different things when it comes to my energy. It could be sex drive, it could be I'm inflamed, I'm getting injured, whatever it could be. It usually 9 times out of 10 has to do with the environment that I'm creating for my physical, my spiritual, and my emotional. So what really stood out to me was, I think the first time I came in here when there was nobody here, I really noticed how intentional you are with like even the oil, the infused oil or whatnot. You got like pumping through the place. It's like, dude, this place is rad. Like it smells good,
right?
And therefore it feels good, and I feel safe. I feel comfortable, and also like I feel like I trust whoever is gonna work on me, just because of this sense of safety. So for me, in the work that I do, I definitely try to focus so much more on that and creating rapport and focusing on the relationship first to develop that trust and that unity So then when we get to do the hard shit, it's so much easier to actually get results because you have that connection through rapport, and there's that trust and just well-being and safety in that environment that you have created for your clients.
Right.
So
Yeah.
Environment.
You hit on environment's huge. It's funny too because so many people come in here and they literally just recognize all the little things. And
I
it's
bet.
Yeah, that you should recognize those things. And what is that doing? And there's even a huge writing on the wall right here. It says live in the moment.
Yes.
And so I wanted to draw everything here so they can feel safe.
And they're like, here's my most vulnerable, ouchy area.
Yes.
Do what you will with it now.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
What?
Feel good. You know, feel people when they realize the amount of attention that goes into something, the amount of love, and it really is, they are more accepting to what is going to happen to them here, even if it is a painful experience, right? And that's going.
They're more accepting of the pain.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that goes with yourself,
Yeah.
right? Like the more that you put attention and love into yourself, you trust yourself.
Yeah.
Like my experience, for example, even though my spiritual path has not been just roses and butterflies, you know that you're putting attention and love into you, and therefore you're okay when things are hard. Even though it's hard, you don't love it, you're still accepting of it because you know that it's for the right reasons. And it shows here, and how people go about their experiences here and what you do as well. And people are more willing to put themselves out there and grow in those experiences for themselves.
Yeah. Did you always know that? Did you always know that you had to create that type of environment? I mean, I know personally, like, I had no idea what I was doing almost 4 years ago now when I got sober. I didn't know that I was so influenced by what I watched, who I hung out with, and garbage in, garbage out type stuff, right? So yeah, because I had no idea that I had to create a safe environment for myself to feel all the feelings and be vulnerable, right? In order to help or guide or assist or love someone to be that themselves. Did you always know that, or did
subconsciously I think so, because I've always wanted and knew I needed to be in a comfortable place and environment. I don't necessarily know why, but I think subconsciously I knew that. And so I knew when starting this, and I knew when going down, starting my journey, that is what I needed to do. And it's just kind of an all-in thing with me. It always has been. It's, one way or the highway kind of thing.
Yeah.
And of course, for me, that is the environment around you, set yourself up for success, and making it easy is not the right word, but giving yourself the right tools, giving yourself the right aim, whatever you want, goals, expectation, all of that's setting yourself up for success. And environment's a huge factor.
Gosh, man.
Yeah.
So what's one thing that if you had to step away from it all right now, that you would what's the legacy that you would want Repair to have and to hold, to give?
Yeah. The legacy to me is how we're going about things. There's so many easier ways.
That.
Yeah, easier ways to make money, that's for sure. And I've obviously have questioned a lot of things. Man, this would be so much easier financially, business-wise, if I did just get rid of these things and go this direction. And you know, it's tough because with a business you do have to somewhat juggle that and balance that, you know, but don't not to have it affect the work that you are truly passionate about and believe in.
Yeah.
And so the legacy, without a doubt, is you know, I really do believe that one day, in the near future, not even too far off, we will see a big shift in the way that this, you know, health and wellness is managed.
I agree.
You know, there will be a big divide as far as whether it'll be 50-50 for people to, you know, go this path and use their insurance and do basic Western medicine, and will the other half of society go this direction and know that that's actually health and wellness over here,
Yeah.
and this is just getting by and appeasing the, you know, big pharma and corporate America and all that stuff. And it's not saying that Western medicine doesn't have its place. It most definitely does, hence the reason we got both here.
Right.
But I really do think it will be that we're hitting it head on. You know, we're okay with calling it out and what doesn't work, and historically what is wrong with the system, and really doing everything we possibly can to make that change. And there's a lot of work to be done, but I think once we get it down and into a place not too far off from now, that it really will draw attention to it in the sense of, yeah, I think we need to do things a little bit different
100%.
and really focus more on the healing aspect. Like Western medicine, in a lot of ways, is not about healing. It's
Yeah.
about staying alive longer on medications,
Like surviving.
and surviving,
Yeah.
right, versus thriving, which this
Yeah.
model is all about. Not only healing the acute injury that you have, repairing it, but it's really coming up with ways to thrive on all three of those pillars: mind, body, and spirit. And to me, it's awesome when somebody came in here for a sprained ankle or whatever, and I see them, you know, a year and a half, 2 years from now, and they've been here, and I'm not necessarily their therapist or anything, but they one day they grab me and be like, you know what, I came in here 2 years ago for this little thing, and now my life is totally different. My relationships are better. I have a self-practice. I'm not on diabetic medication anymore. I'm all natural. I lost 50 pounds. I do this, I do that, and it's not just I'm more physical. It's all aspects of their life.
All right.
To me, that is the goal. That is the legacy, that this is a system that people truly feel vulnerable and accepting of it, and it allows them to give themselves more love, and it just affects a lot of people around them.
And be empowered as an
Be empowered.
individual.
Yeah.
God, I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. It's not what you do, it's how you do it.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
why you do
For
it.
sure.
God, I love
Yeah, and that can be on so many different levels, like health and wellness. Of course, yeah, it's everybody has to deal with it, but I think you can do any business, anything you do. I think you can do it on that kind of level, with intention, with self-love, and the people
100%.
around you.
Yeah.
You know, that is something that I still have a ways to go in here, because I'm still very much on the current, you know, path of personal work. But at some point, it's like I want it to everybody that comes in here as employees as well. You know, and I have had a lot of people come in here and, you know, move on to the next level of their careers and turn back around and say, wow, that, you know, changed me, and just how much passion and love and attention to everything, which is awesome. But it's also, I want it to be systematically built in, you know, in various ways, shapes, and forms for employees too, that they're able to get in here and change who they are as an individual, and have certain practices in place because they work here. You know, like ultimately that is what we do, and that is what we're trying to do. I have to also now figure out how can I incorporate that into the system for my employees, you know. And so there's a lot of levels to it, and it's a lot of ask for one individual, but that is, you know, that is what I shot to do, you know, desire to do.
It's incredible. It sounds like just planting seeds.
Yeah.
Just planting seeds.
Always, yeah.
And it's up to the individual whether it's landing on, you know, hard soil or
without a doubt.
Nutrients.
Yes.
Nutrient soil.
Yes. Yeah.
Do you have anything else? That's about an hour, man.
Yeah. No. I mean, we
crushed
got on
it.
a lot of topics.
Yeah.
Solid. No. That's really it. I mean, I think we hit pretty much everything that I'd like to get across.
Yeah, I agree.
And driving it home as far as that it is work, it is self-love, it is attention, it is vulnerability, that you have to be comfortable with you, and you have to have an environment, and that can be a physical, that can be spiritual, that can be people environment around you, in order to plant the seed and let it grow. Like all of that wrapped in is, I think we hit on a lot of that, and it's okay
be patient.
to talk about
it. Takes time.
Yes, and everybody has a masculine and feminine side.
Right.
It's okay.
And it's okay.
Yes. And
it's actually very healthy.
Yeah, and keep attracting people that are gonna help you grow.
Yeah.
And it's okay for some people to move on that are not going to help you grow.
And your question, oh my gosh, like yes or no? What was your questions? Just to summarize again.
What question?
That you asked yourself.
I don't. Oh, well, I mean, the yes or no is just everything you do. Yes or no, as far as, is this feeding, the good wolf or the bad wolf?
Okay.
Right. Like,
is this good for my soul? Is this bad for my soul?
Correct. Yeah. Is this going to benefit me, or is this not? And if it's not directly not going to benefit me, is it going to hinder me in any type of way if I keep going down this path? I truly look at everything we do in life is just yes or no's. It's just like a computer, ones and zeros. That's how those crazy things operate, right? We're not that much different. Yes, no, yes, no, yes, no, yes, no, yes, no, yes, no, all day long, every day. Right. And it's whether it's on your higher self path in alignment with your subconscious and conscious, or are you drifting way out here because you kept going down a yes path that was not so great, right? Eventually, I promise you, no matter what takes place, it will shove you back to where you are supposed to be. And the further you get out here, the more dramatic that shove will be.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Or you just numb yourself until you get so far out, and then who knows if you're able to make it back, which is obviously something that you don't want to deal with.
That's why I do what I do, and I love it. I love it because I've been that far back.
Yeah.
And I was able to come.
Right. I think everybody
to this
is.
Place.
I think everybody can. It's just you gotta work on it.
That environment.
Yeah.
Attraction or promotion.
Yeah.
Dude, I love
Absolutely.
it.
Appreciate you, man.
Thank you, bro.
Yes,
this was rad.
Loved it.
All right, y'all. Jeff talks. Oh.
Nailed her.
Nailed her. Oh.
That flowed. Flowed like the river of Capistrano.